The music mogul Sean Diddy, also known as Diddy, his longtime lieutenant Harvey Pierre, and a third man who is still unidentified, are accused of ganging up on a 17-year-old girl inside Diddy's recording studio in Manhattan in 2003 after the high school student was trafficked across state lines and plied with large doses of alcohol and drugs, the fourth woman to accuse the bad boy founder of assault in 3 weeks, according to an explosive new complaint filed on Wednesday, December 6, claims the males alternately attacked her in the restroom of Daddy's house recording studio when the Grammy winner was, and she was a high school student. 34 years old, not long after the lawsuit was filed, Diddy angrily refuted Doe's claims in a statement that said, "Enough is enough. For the past few weeks, I have sat silently and watched people try to assassinate my character and destroy my reputation and my legacy. Horrible accusations have been leveled about me by people hoping to become rich quick. To be clear, I did not commit any of the horrible things that are being accused of. I will stand up for the truth, my family, and my reputation." The rapper released a fresh statement in which he claimed that 2 decades ago, while Jane Doe was out with a companion at a lounge in the Detroit area, Pierre made a specific effort to pick her out, praised her attractiveness, and declared that he and Diddy were closest friends. According to the 14-page lawsuit, Pierre allegedly informed the teenager that the bad boy boss would want to see her and asked Diddy to call him so the music honcho could personally invite her on an unplanned trip to New York on board a private aircraft. The teenager to Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, where her Pierre was picked up by a waiting SUV. And the third man, who was not identified, to the studio where Diddy was wrapping up work with a recording artist. The document that Rolling Stone was able to obtain shows several color pictures purportedly taken inside Daddy's home recording studio that evening, one of which shows the teenager sitting on the rapper's backside. According to the petition, the teenager was given a lot of drugs and alcohol, while Diddy, Pierre, and the third guy repeatedly touched and grabbed her body. The youngster was so drunk that everything began to blur. Diddy is said to have taken her to a restroom, taken down her skirt and panties, and peed on her from behind. The case was filed in the Southern District of New York State while she was hovering over the sink. When Miss Doe turned to face Mr. Combs, he informed her that he was unable to experience an orgasm and requested her to squeeze. Miss Doe had not given her agreement to have sex with Mr. Combs. The complaint, which has a trigger warning in bold red letters on its front page, claims the youngster was drifting in and out of consciousness. The kid allegedly tried her hardest to assist him get off, but he turned her around and kept harassing her. As she raised her gaze to the mirror over the Diddy was watching the assault from a chair just outside the bathroom when she noticed the unidentified man from the plane ride had replaced her and was now approaching her from behind, according to the filing. She claims the unidentified man ignored her pleas for him to stop and eventually moved aside so Pierre could take a turn. She alleges that after giving her non-consensual VX, Pierre forcibly coerced her into giving him an oral sex. The complaint claims that once Mr. Pierre finished, he abandoned Miss Doe in the restroom alone herself. Miss Doe recalls that Mr. Pierre was sweating and that she had trouble breathing. Miss Doe collapsed to lie in a fetal posture. The teenager was in pain on the floor, and after she managed to get her bearings and walk with some help, she was taken back to the airport and flown back to Michigan. The lawsuit also names Bad Boy Entertainment and Daddy's House Records as defendants. She barely remembers the return flight and only remembers being in her. The lawsuit also claims that Diddy and his associates spent a lot of time in Detroit and that the rapper had a lot of connections there, especially with the Black Mafia family, a drug trafficking and money laundering organization that is thought to have helped create bad boy culture. The car accident occurred early in the morning. Attorney Douglas H. Witter submitted the latest. On behalf of the teen, following his representation of R&B singer Cassandra Casassi Ventura in her shocking November 16 complaint against Diddy, in which Cassie claimed Diddy was forcing her into having drug-fueled, non-consensual sex with other men while he watched, and that he frequently punched, kicked, and trampled her, and a day later the two declared a settlement. To be clear, settling a case, particularly in 2023, does not imply an acknowledgement of fault. According to Diddy's attorney, who claimed that the pact was not an admission of guilt. In a statement to Rolling Stone, his attorney Ben Brafman claimed that Mr. Combs' choice to settle the lawsuit does not in any way contradict his categorically denied assertions that he is pleased they reached a mutually beneficial agreement and hopes Miss Ventura, the greatest wigdor, used Cassie's case to launch the most recent lawsuit from the new Jane Doe. He said that Cassie's allegations were swiftly verified by others and served as a spur for further accusers to come forward. Speak up in unison. He stated that although reading Cassie's claims of being coerced into having sex with other men against her will was upsetting for her, she now realized that she had also been trafficked and that Mr. Combs' actions of pressuring women into having sex against their will. It wasn't a singular or isolated incident, only to Miss Ventura. Witter claims in a statement to newsrooms that Diddy Pierre and the third unnamed defendant preyed on a helpless high school girl as part of a trafficking scheme that involved giving her alcohol and flying her to New York City on a private jet, where he says the depravity of these heinous acts has, not surprisingly, left scars. Live for the now. According to the case, Doe is entitled to an award of compensatory and punitive damages since she allegedly experienced financial losses due to bodily harm, pain and suffering, and severe psychological and emotional anguish. Another action under the Adult Survivor Act was brought against Pierre, who worked for Diddy at Bad Boy Records after meeting him at Howard University. An unidentified executive assistant filed a new Jane Doe lawsuit on Wednesday, alleging that Pierre had repeatedly groomed, harassed, and assaulted her in 2016 and 2017. The lawsuit was brought under the Victims of Gender-Motivated Violence Act legislation, which was passed by the City Council on November 22 and established a 2-year look-back window for civil claims that were before exempt from the statute of limitations. The 3 previous cases against Diddy were brought under the state's adult survivors legislation, which expired last month. The provision only applies to allegations of gender-motivated abuse inside the city's 5 bureaus. It expires on March 1, 2025. Following Cassie's complaint, on Thanksgiving Day, 2 other women came forward with identical, unsettling allegations against the executive. The second accuser claimed the rapper drugged and physically abused her in 1991 while she was a student at Syracuse University. She also claimed the coming home hitmaker recorded the incident and shared the video with others, calling it a form of revenge. Diddy refuted the claim. This hurried legal action is an illustration of how a legislation with good intentions may be interpreted incorrectly. Nonetheless, this 32-year-old tale is untrue and made up. The representative claimed that the third complaint claimed that singer-songwriter Aaron Hall took turns being abused by Mr. Combs and that she implicates firms that never existed. This is just a money grab, nothing more. Following an event at Uptown Records in the early 1990s, the plaintiff and her friend claimed that days later, Puffy showed up at the house where she was staying and became violent. He was enraged and started beating and strangling Jane Doe until she passed out, according to the complaint. These are made up claims that were filed at the last minute and falsely claim misconduct that occurred more than 30 years ago. A haughty spokesperson called the third accuser's actions just a money grab, even though the father of 7 has denied any wrongdoing. He resigned as chairman of his media company Revolt last week and was allegedly dismissed by the Harlem Charter. While attending school, he co-founded the booze giant Dio. In the meanwhile, he is pleading with a judge to thwart Diddy's application for a court injunction, which would let him to utilize newly received marketing funds to publicly shame himself in tequila advertisements. Dio predicted that a campaign like this would be disastrous for the brand. In response to the news, the internet has released one user-generated content. This whole thing got me thinking about Diddy's love persona. It always seemed a little over the top, but now it makes so much sense that people who tend to hide their skeletons would go to court if Diddy was going to fight for his name. We'll wait for more information. Excessively compensate. That's all for now. Let us know in the comments area below whether you believe Diddy will be taking a vacation anytime soon. Thank you for watching, and until next time.